Hello and welcome. This is the oddschecker World Cup 2022 betting preview show brought to you in association with Bet UK. We're just days away from kickoff in Qatar and we've got a serious panel to talk you through various things. We're going to be going through each of the 8 groups, taking a look at the runners and the riders. Of course, we'll talk about the outright winner market, the Golden Boot winner, the Golden Ball winner as well. I've got 3 brilliant guests with me. Stephen McInerney is here. Mark O'Hare, of course, betting analyst, betting supremo. Can't wait to hear what he has to say, having done, I've no doubt, plenty of research, Mark. And Raj Chohan with us as well, tactical expert from the Premier League panel Twitter account and other places as well. This show brought to you in association with Bet UK. And before we get into the action, let me tell you about a fantastic sign-up offer that Bet UK have for the World Cup. It's their best ever offer for new customers, and it's England 1966 themed. Bet £19 and get £66 in free bets. England going for their first World Cup since then, hoping for a repeat. Bet UK providing £66 in free bets when you stake £19. To claim the free bets, you have to register a new account with Bet UK and place a qualifying bet of £19 or more within 7 days of registration. T's and C's do apply, so make sure that you check the T's and C's before signing up for a new Bet UK account. And as always, if you're thinking of placing a bet on the World Cup or any time, we ask that you gamble responsibly. Please be gamble aware, understand the risks that come with betting. I think we should take a look at Group A first. No need to change a standard formula. We've got Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador and the hosts Qatar in Group A. Netherlands, understandably a strong favourite to qualify from the group 1 to 16 with Bet UK. Senegal and Ecuador is perhaps the most interesting question in terms of who the bookmakers are priced up to advance with them, and Qatar big outsiders at 13 to 4 to qualify. I'm going to start with Stephen because of the 4 of us, you've got the strongest beard.
Well,
and that feels like a good way of choosing. Stephen, taking a look at Group A, talk us through your main thoughts on this one.
This feels like potentially Netherlands to lose, really, doesn't it? Though it does a lot depend on Mane, really, doesn't it, with his fitness, because that's been an issue going into this game. But I'm looking forward to seeing if Qatar can actually do anything, because obviously they're there by default, and so to speak, and they've got a team mainly made up of players from I think it's entirely from players from the league, actually. So it's not loads of experience apart from the lad who was at Villarreal, I think. Yeah. Is it Arif? I think his name.
That's right.
I get names terribly wrong. I'm so sorry in advance. But usually, obviously, the host nation, they always do tend to bring a surprise or two, and I think only 1 or 2 have ever failed to get out of the group full stop, which is a bit crazy. I don't think Qatar quite have that quality. But you never know. Stranger things have happened in football. For me, though, obviously, I'm really curious to see how Netherlands do. They're probably quite a long way away from that golden generation they had a few years back. You think of all the famous names they had. And it's not quite as a glamorous squad as it used to be, but it's still obviously chocked full of quality players. And obviously built around possibly one of the best centre-backs in world football, if not the best, which really will help in Virgil van Dijk. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's an interesting group because it's sort of open, I would say. Netherlands are great, but they're not I would say they're not the powerhouse that they used to be in general, and the other teams are definitely capable. Ecuador as well, with loads of Premier League quality in that team as well. The Brighton lads, Casido and Stupian as well. So
absolutely, Raj. Holland, the Netherlands as a nation, always one of the most fascinating tactically, such a strong identity. Louis van Gaal's the manager. How's he got them set up ahead of this one? There's that Dutch style total football 4-3-3. Van Gaal's not that wedded to it.
No, yeah, it's an interesting style, really. He has done a big transformation of the Dutch national team, really, since the Euros, which was a pretty failed campaign from De Boer. But if you look at his record, he's got 11 wins, 4 draws, and 0 losses. So he's heading into the tournament in brilliant form, really. But yeah, system-wise, he's using a 3 at the back formation. So it's a kind of a 3-4-1-2. And that back 3, what I like about it is all 3 of them are very good ball players. Yeah. Obviously, Ake on the left side, Van Dijk in the middle, and then Duran Timber from Ajax has been playing on the right. Yeah. All 3 of them can progress the ball out the back. So you can get a foothold in any game, really, which has allowed them to beat some big nations. They've beaten Belgium twice, one of them quite comfortably. And then in midfield, you may say the Dutch don't have that many big stars, but I think they've got, as Stephen said, a lot of talent there. Frenkie de Jong, for example, doesn't really get maximised at Barca as a main kind of hub of Barca's build-up play, because they've got so much of a talent like Pedri and Gavi. But for Holland, everything runs through him.
Yeah.
And he's like a conductor, the orchestrator of all their attacks. His carrying of the ball is a big feature of Holland's game. And then also up front as well, another guy who doesn't get used that well at Barca, Memphis Depay.
Yeah.
He is in hot form for Holland over the last couple of years. I think he's close to becoming their top scorer pretty soon. And I'm a big Memphis Depay fan. I think he does get harshly judged on his time in the Premier League, but I think you've seen a good evolution in his game since then. He's a second striker of sorts, so he can create, but he can also score goals. So he played in the front two, Stevie Bergwijn from previously of Spurs up front, and then behind that they've got another guy in form, Cody Gakpo from PSV Eindhoven. He's been on fire really this season, and is another goal source. So they're looking pretty good, I think, the Dutch, and could be causing a few waves in the knockout rounds as well.
They've got some fabulous technical players. They have a style that could see them cut loose and play some exciting attacking football. Mark, teams like that heading into the World Cup don't always hit their stride in the group stages, and we have seen a lot of teams heavily favoured to win groups over the last few iterations of the World Cup who actually get dumped out at the group stage. I always think from a betting perspective, because you've got Netherlands 1-16 to qualify, a few others in other groups really short. For me, the interest comes in, can we work out who of the big dogs, so to speak, might struggle? And if they do, who's well placed to progress in their stead? So Senegal, the AFCON champions. Ecuador, I've seen a few shouts for a little dark horse pick there. And then Qatar, the hosts. Talk me through what you're thinking here.
Well, I don't think the Dutch are bomb-proof at 4-9. I wouldn't be backing them in multiples or even to win the group at that price. I don't like the goalkeeping situation they have right now. There's a big question mark there. Memphis doesn't start the tournament either. He's injured. He'll be missing the match against Senegal, which kind of evens itself out a little bit with Mane being absent for Senegal. Qatar, the host nation, has never lost their first game in the World Cup. So they're taking on Ecuador in the opener. So Ecuador everyone's sort of talking about as being a dark horse. Brazil's head coach has talked about them as being the surprise package coming into this competition. I can certainly see that, but I think the odds have moved probably a little bit too far in their favour after the Mane news came out, because Senegal were pretty strong second favourites behind the Dutch. So I think there might be mileage in getting Senegal on side to qualify at 19-20. There is quality across the board. Everyone looks to Mane. He is the sort of spiritual leader of that team. He is the superstar, but there is quality elsewhere. Defensively, they're rock solid. They've lost 2 games in 3 years. They arrive in sort of a really good headspace after getting that African nations off their back as well. And I just think the draw does them favours as well. Ecuador starting against Qatar. That's a difficult game. Their second match is against the Dutch. You kind of want to play the Dutch first because they've had, a week's turnaround from domestic matters. They're going to get better as the tournament progresses. Senegal will play them first, so there's an opportunity there to spring a surprise, avoid defeat. Then you play Qatar second and finish with that all-or-nothing game against Ecuador, which could be outrageously fun. So, I'm still sort of sticking with Senegal. I wanted to be with Ecuador from the beginning of the competition, but the Mane news has now sort of changed the prices enough for me to sort of ease off them a little bit and go back on the Senegal bus.
Okay, well, Netherlands, as you say, not bomb-proof. So Senegal at 9-2 to win the group, Ecuador at 11-2. I guess for anyone who's interested in someone to take on Netherlands, it's just weighing up Mane's fitness and how much his impact might, or how much his absence may impact Senegal, because they are the AFCON champions. It's not just about Mane, is it? They've got Koulibaly at the back, Idrissa Gueye in midfield. They've only conceded 51 goals in 77 games under the manager Aliou Cisse. So not hard to see how that could translate to a bit of success in the group stages. And I think we're all interested to see how Qatar get on in terms of preparation for this tournament. Well, the amount of time they've sunk into it with essentially a 6-month-long training camp. They've played friendlies against various nations, various club teams as well, trying to recreate tournament competitive international football. I'm not sure how well they've actually got on in that regard, and I know when they've played against top 50 ranked nations, their record is very, very poor. So all eyes on that opening game, and we'll get a much better idea of what this Qatar team is actually like on the biggest stage. Group B is the group that contains England. They are the favourites to win the group at 3-10 with Bet UK. Outside of England, it's a really interesting market because Wales are 11-2 and the USA 6-1 to win the group. They're both evens to qualify from the group. So it's sort of pick 'em in the eyes of the Bet UK traders between Wales and the USA, with Iran the outsiders of the 4. Stephen, is this England analysis going to come from the heart or from the head? And are you a positive England fan or not?
I've been burned a lot, mate. I've been burned a lot. No, I'm a realistic England fan. England got a good team, and that's it. I mean, this group though, it's a fun group. We could see another famous 1-1 victory for the US, you know. So who knows how it's going to go? But like, I look at that group, and there's just lots of stories there. And ultimately, as a football fan, that's sort of what you want. And that's not really any deep dive analysis. It's just an emotional reflection of looking at the group. And look, the US and Wales, and obviously there's no real history with Iran in football in a sense, but that's just a really interesting group. In England, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all, you know, if I was the players, because emotion, especially at a World Cup, and that sense of story can drive teams to so much further. We've seen Wales get to the semi-finals, you know, the Euros before, and the US, of course, they missed out. Was it last couple of World Cups they missed out? Was it last one? Last couple? Last one. They're going to be massively up for it. Some quality young players as well, you know, especially young players with an English connection, obviously, you know, Anthony Robinson, Gio Reyna, a guy I've got a soft spot for as a City fan, you know, and Pulisic, of course, you feel like he's got a lot to prove, though maybe some people don't think he does, but it's going to be fascinating. England, they should win this group. I'm expecting it not to be smooth though. I think probably a couple of draws and maybe a surprise defeat at some point. But no, maybe that would be terrible actually. That'd no, maybe a surprise defeat but a couple of wins. You know, I think someone could pip them there. Maybe Wales, something like that.
Raj, rock solid group favourites England or not? If not, who's best placed to hurt them?
Yeah, it's a good question. The Iranians actually, I think, could be an underrated horse going into this. I think they had a recent 0-0 draw against Uruguay. That was a pretty impressive result, and they've got a manager with a bit of pedigree, Carlos Queiroz. Took Egypt to the AFCON final with not much star names in that team, really. Just Mo Salah, of course, and he's now the Iranian manager, and he's going to be horrible to play against, I can tell you that. He puts probably the deepest block in the tournament. It will be Iran's. So it's going to be a nightmare match for us, I think. And they have got Mediterranean up front as well, who's getting a few goals and assists for Porto. He's got a bit of Champions League pedigree. So I think this could be a tricky match as well for us, as well as the USA and Wales matches. So maybe I'd still back the Welsh, I reckon, as a biggest threat to to England finishing top. I do like their team, obviously. Bale, he always turns up for Wales. He turns into a different animal, really, for them.
He's great, isn't he, by the way, Gareth Bale? I absolutely love Gareth Bale. Everything he stands for, just Wales. It's
golf.
Great. Yeah, golf and Wales.
Golf and Wales.
It's class. Sorry.
And I've got a few other names as well. I mean, Brennan Johnson's been decent over the last couple of years. Dan James as well. So it's not just Bale. It'll be interesting to see if Wales play with a number 9 or not, or if they put Bale as a false 9, because they have done that. But I think Kiefer Moore's looking pretty impressive for Bournemouth. So I'd probably back him playing up front, and then probably playing Bale and James behind him, because they do play a 3-4-3 system. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the Welsh could cause a few surprises. I think the US, a few of their players, Pulisic, McInerney, they're not in the greatest of form, and they didn't pick one of their star strikers as well, Ricardo Pepi, for some reason.
Do they have any star strikers? I feel like that's
probably
quite
pushing it a bit.
Probably an area of weakness. You know, at fullback they're clearly very strong. Their wide attackers, you know, undeniably strong. I feel like they are one of many teams that go into this tournament not necessarily having a clear idea of who's going to be the focal point of the attack. It's going to be fascinating. I feel like, Mark, this is actually a group with quite a low goal expectancy overall. Iran, the deepest block in the competition. If only there was a market for that, then they'd be heavy favs. Wales, definitely a reactive team, a counter-attacking team at their heart. USA, much more athletic and can attack well, but maybe haven't got the best goal-scoring record. Even England themselves, a team that prioritise control over expansive attacking football and committing numbers forward. So a low goal expectancy, which I must admit as an England fan makes me nervous. Low margin games, set pieces could be the difference maker. England have been very strong from set pieces, but I can see where there would be opportunities for England to have a bit of a shocker. Where do you stand here?
I think England understandably are fair favourites. I don't really want to oppose them at those prices, but this is definitely an awkward group, as I'd call it, and Raj has already sort of stolen my thunder really on Iran. I like them at 13-4 to qualify from this group. They're playing England and Wales in the afternoon heat, so conditions will suit. Wales do have problems breaking down deep line defences. So unless Gareth is going to score a blinder from 30 yards or a free kick, which we know he's more than capable of doing, it could be a tough afternoon. And Wales have to play England on the final match day. So if England haven't already sewn up qualification, That's not the kind of game you want to be going into needing a victory. So, yeah, you talk about a low margin group in terms of goal expectancy as well. That lends itself to underdog victories, and I think Iran can have a much better say in this group than the 13-4 gives them credit for. I think they've got the best coach in the group as well, Carlos Queiroz.
Yeah.
You go back 4 years, they're in a group of Spain and Portugal. Taremi missed an opportunity in the last minute. If that goes in, they win that group.
Yeah.
He doesn't score it, they finish outside of the qualification places, and that's with Spain and Portugal. You look at the group now and you think that's more manageable than it was 4 years ago. I think he's got 16 or 17 of that squad back for this tournament again. There's experience. A lot of those players have grown with their clubs and moved on to bigger and better things. And I look elsewhere, of course, we know all about England and Wales. The Americans, very weak at centre-half and centre-forward. And the midfield, I talk about an awkward group. The midfield are just lung-busting, energy. They're going to be in your face. How much quality is there to actually get the job done? Question marks about the coach as well. And their form outside of CONCACAF has been questionable. So I think Wales deserve to be slightly shorter than evens to qualify. I'd have USA as firmly third in the pecking order. But I think as a value bet-wise, Iran at 13-4 as well, I'd be going.
Go on,
I was just going to say, the worry I have from an England perspective tactically as well is we're also caught between two stools. Are we going to use that three at the back system, or are we going to go for the 4-2-3-1? Southgate did try to be a bit more expressive against Hungary, and we lost 4-0 with a 4-2-3-1. I think it's pretty nailed on if we do
Six
play
at the back now, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think it's pretty nailed on if we do play a big nation, we'll use the three at the back. But I think he may end up using the four at the back against these nations in the group, and it could be a banana skin for us then.
Good. Well, nice and straightforward then. 3 potential banana skins in what is objectively quite an interesting group, to be quite honest. I've got a good feeling about the Wales team, and I suppose because the World Cup's the pinnacle for every single team at the World Cup, maybe the strength of this Welsh spirit that I have in my head is less of a marker, but there's just something about them that's hard, not necessarily quantifiable in data or looking at stats, but I just...
My worry about Wales is the 3 games in a week. Bale has said on Monday that he's fit, he's firing, he's ready to play 3 games and 3 90 minutes in a week. We'll have to wait and see if he can. Ramsey, who's not really found a home in that midfield now for quite some time, really, probably since the last Euros but one, and Joe Allen as well, who can be quite influential and integral, hasn't been fully fit either. So there's a few sort of senior statesmen who you look towards to lead that group. Question marks over them, but I think that in terms of the young guns, they've got a really nice mix of experience and flair as well. So, yeah, as I say, I think they deserve to be second favourites, and I'm surprised that they're the same money as USA at evens, but we'll wait and see. I think the Iran game could be key.
Bet UK do have an England not to qualify market. For England not to qualify, current odds of 6-1. Which I was trying to ignore pre-show, and now finding it a bit more difficult to do so. In Group C, we've got Argentina, the second favourites for the tournament. The 2021 Copa America winners, of course, beat Brazil, the favourites for the World Cup in that. Messi heavily involved and just needs a World Cup to top off the greatest career, possibly the greatest sporting career of all time. They're with Mexico, Poland and Saudi Arabia. Mexico are the second favourites to win the group and therefore to qualify as well. 9-2 to win it, at 7-10 to qualify. Poland at even money, and Saudi Arabia at 6-1. Big outsiders to qualify from the group with Bet UK. Raj, what do we need to be talking about first and foremost in Group C?
I think Argentina, they go into the group undefeated in 35 matches. That is a pretty ridiculous record, to be honest, yeah.
The last team that went into a major tournament with a crazy unbeaten record was Italy.
Yeah.
And they won the Euros.
Exactly, yeah. So
if Argentina survive the group stage unbeaten, they break Italy's record as well for the most unbeaten games in international football.
And they beat Italy at Wembley, remember, to win the Finalissima. So they're taking all of Italy's glory away from them. But yeah, Argentina, I think the difference to them this year and this World Cup is they've got a very solid structure in place. Before, it was all about the attacking flair up front. But now you look from back to front, they've got good talent everywhere. Emi Martinez in goal, you start off with him, he's a very solid shot stopper. He doesn't let many in, and he can put out some fantastic saves as well. And he's got good time wasting in his locker as well.
Is there an attribute for that in football manager? Just time wasting.
And then you look at centre backs as well. Christian Romero, I've been very impressed with him since he's joined Spurs. I think he has grown to be one of the best centre backs in the league. And that aggression he brings at the back, that's something they missed for many years. Slight concern next to him, he's got Nicholas Otamendi. I think Stephen knows him very well. But
he's lovable, but yeah, I wouldn't put it this way. Diaz is an upgrade. Otamendi can be brilliant, though. That's the thing. In a game like in a big game, he was called the general for a reason, at Man City, because he can just suddenly have a 10 out of 10 or a 4.
Yeah.
Like more 4s than 10s, admittedly, but he can be great in a competition. I mean, is Lissandro like that? Is he not?
Yeah, Lissandro's not a starter for them, which I was quite surprised about. I'd probably think about playing him at maybe left back because his build-up quality, his passing is fantastic, but they haven't gone that way. I think the midfield as well is where they also excel. They've got a real workaholic in midfield, in defensive midfield. Guido Rodriguez of Real Betis, he wins a lot of tackles, wins a lot of duels, and then they've got Rodrigo de Paul, similarly very strong work ethic. And then the other place is up for debate. Maybe Leandro Paredes, maybe Enzo Fernandez from Benfica, who's had a fantastic start to the season. And then, of course, up front, you got Lionel Messi, who's on fire this season. Champions League, League One, he's been fantastic in both tournaments. And
I actually think he'd be less effective in League One than in League One. It's a shame we'll never get to test that out. Would it be fair to say that, in hindsight, Argentina not having won the World Cup with Messi, that a lot of time the narrative is, well, do you build a team around Messi or do you build a team in which Messi can be a part of, clearly the star? I'm not sure they've always got that balance right in major tournaments. Does it feel, Mark, like they're in better shape than previous iterations?
Oh, absolutely. You think the shambles they were at 4 years ago, and it's incredible. Scaloni obviously recognised what needed to be done. They're certainly not the most star-studded squad from Argentina we've seen for a long, long time at the World Cup, but they're certainly the most unified, the most cohesive. You talk about the centre-half options. I wouldn't want to be playing up front against Otamendi and Romero. And you've got probably Acuna at left back as well. I mean, they're a feisty bunch, and they're very tigerish in midfield, very physical. But then they've got the ability up front. Lautaro's had a great couple of years in Italy, scoring goals. He's really flourished, having Messi there for the ammunition. Di Maria as well, sort of had a bit of a rejuvenation as well. So, yeah, I like the starting 11. Outside of that, there's probably a few more question marks about who comes in if injuries do start to happen. But
the City lad's good. Alvarez, I've been watching him this season. He's the kind of person, once again, who'd be absolutely up for this. He's absolutely relentless. He never stops running, and once again in the tiring heat and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if he contributes to quite a few turnovers, defensively, especially for the last 20 minutes. And obviously we know how important those little moments can be in football at a knockout competition. So he could be a bit of a hidden gem for them.
And they received some good news. Paulo Dybala is also fit for the tournament, and he's been fantastic under Jose Mourinho in Serie A for Roma this season. So along with Alvarez and Dybala could be very handy options off the bench to change the game.
Flip side, you've lost Lo Celso as well, who's been pretty key and integral for a long time in that midfield. So.
It feels like we can pretty definitively say that regardless of individuals and highlighting how important or not they are to the team, Scaloni has found a way of winning football matches, certainly not losing football matches, whoever's been available for him, winning the Copa America as well, so getting over the line in a major tournament, major continental tournament. I've seen that they were winning at half-time in 12 of their 17 qualifying matches, so they've been good at starting strong, and their Copa America matches, they're always going to be heavily favoured for the most part, so I dare say a lot of the teams will be sitting in and trying to frustrate, slow the game down. That's where a lot of big teams can struggle if they don't impose themselves early on in games. The data, the stats would suggest Argentina are very good at that under Scaloni. Has anyone got any strong thoughts on the rest of Group C? It feels like we think Argentina are pretty strong. Mexico, Poland, Saudi Arabia, who's looking strong?
Saudi coaches, isn't it? It's Renard. He's won a couple of AFCONs, hasn't he?
Very suave man, isn't he?
Yeah, unbelievably
An
beautiful
iconic
man.
international manager.
And winning an AFCON with Zambia as well. It just that's putting through for that reason. But he's obviously got so much experience at international level and winning competitions and so on. That just makes them 10 times more credible, doesn't it? And more effective. You just don't want to play them, because he's proven time and time again that he can succeed at this level. So, elsewhere, we just know the quality of the other two sides. And Lewandowski finally due a good World Cup, I guess, as well, because he's struggled a little bit in knockout stages, hasn't he, and so on. Other than that, Mexico, they've been struggling a bit, haven't they? Or the form's been a bit iffy under Tata Martino. So it's like they've got a little bit to prove. And I think they're historically pretty good again at the groups, aren't they? It's just whether they can step it up this time, because to me, Poland, I feel like they've got a stronger shout than Mexico, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Mexico, a big blow for them is they've lost Jesus Corona, FC Porto's left winger. So he plays for Sevilla now, sorry. But yeah, he's missing for the tournament. And then also Raul Jimenez hasn't looked the same player in the last couple of seasons. So I don't think they've quite got the firepower. Lozano's looking okay for Napoli, but other than that, there's not much to get excited about up front. Whereas Poland, in contrast, have Lewandowski. They've got Eric Milik in top form for Juventus at the moment, and also Piotr Zielinski has been a key man in Napoli's rise this season under Spalletti. So I fancy them just to have a bit more in the final third than Mexico and take that second spot.
These are the sort of preview conversations I love the most, trying to compare Mexico playing in CONCACAF to Poland playing in the UEFA competitions, trying to work out, two teams that look very different, have very different makeup, different strengths, different tactical approaches, trying to work out how that will actually look when push comes to shove. Mark, prices wise, value wise, what are you making of Group C?
Certainly not having Mexico at 7 to 10 to qualify.
Right.
Definitely not, for all the reasons that Raj has already outlined. Interesting because Poland's weapons are in forward areas. Defensively, I think they can be got at. I think they are quite suspect. If you're still relying on Kamil Glick at centre half and Krychowiak at defensive midfielder, I think that's a concern for me. But where are Mexico's goals going to come from? Raul Jimenez was a top goal scorer in qualifying with 3. All 3 were penalties. You do worry about them. There's a real mutinous atmosphere around Mexico towards Tata Martino over the last 18 months. They've lost key matches against the USA in finals in CONCACAF, which is unforgivable doing it once, but to do it twice in the same year, they want him out. And there's all this obsession about getting to the 5th game, getting past the last 16 and playing a quarter-final tie for the first time in forever. But I think they'll be lucky to get out of the group this time around. I think Poland have the edge, but it's a very difficult betting heat. But just Mexico at 7 to 10 doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. So the default option is Poland. It's quite a short price as well as an alternative, but Argentina to score the most goals in this group feels like a bit of a gimme. It's 3 to 5, so it's kind of ACCA material, I guess.
Group D has a very clear and obvious line after France and Denmark, strong favourites to qualify, both of them at 3 to 10 with Bet UK. Tunisia 18 to 5 and Australia 19 to 5. So neatly arranged in little pairs here. Mark, from a betting perspective, France, the world champions, they won the Nations League as well in 2021. Deschamps, the longest serving manager at the World Cup. He's won it before as a player, as a manager, known as being a very adaptable tactician as well. But Denmark, they feel like a really nicely balanced team, and I know that they'll be a popular sort of dark horse pick. My definition of the dark horse has to be anyone who's 10th or longer in the betting. There's a group of 9 teams you can kind of rule out. They don't count as a dark horse. Denmark might be the most fancied of the rest. What do you make of this group?
Love Denmark, love them to bits. I backed them at big prices at the Euros and was heartbroken when they lost to England in the semi-finals. To even get to the semi-finals, considering what they went through in that tournament, is admirable, really. And I know a few of their games in the groups were at Copenhagen and they were backed by phenomenal support, really. But you're right, this is a team. There might not be a huge amount of stars in that squad, but they're absolutely cohesive and they know exactly what they're doing. They've got a head coach who's incredibly adaptable, incredibly smart as well. They've turned over France home and away this calendar year. They know how to beat the big guns. And with Christian Eriksen back in the fold as well, we've got that bit of X factor. So I think at centre half and I think wing back situations as well, they're very, very strong. Centre forward is always the doubt with Denmark, but I think they had 18 different goal scorers during qualifying, which is remarkable, really. It shows the versatility of that team. I think as an outright dark horse, I think you can probably get around 33 to 1 now, possibly slightly bigger on Denmark to go the distance. It's probably at the right price now. Smart people got on them at 100 to 1 12 months ago. Yeah. That was definitely the wrong price. But yeah, they're here, and I think to win the group at 5 to 2, that's where I'd be looking over France, because there are question marks over France right now. That World Cup winning midfield has been ripped up with injury. Kimpembe's now been ruled out as well for the tournament. Don't think it's the biggest loss, but they've got options elsewhere at centre-half. But that midfield, we know they're talented. The likes of Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Rabiot's now going to be back in the midfield, or whatever your views of him are. But they're 2 youngsters who, to be sort of parachuted into the same roles as Kante and Pogba, that's a big shoes to fill, really. And the feeling in France right now is concern. So they didn't want to be drawn in the same group as Denmark. They are, so we'll see. Because the carrot in this group, to win the group, you avoid Argentina probably in the last 16 if the betting plays out as we expect. So that match between the two is massive. And yeah, you're right, just put a line through the group after that, because Tunisia and Australia have to play well above themselves to have any sort of opportunity to qualify.
Agree with that, Raj?
Yeah, definitely. I think the interesting thing with France is they've gone away from that blueprint which won the 2018 World Cup, and they've kind of been forced to, with Kante, Pogba having injuries, and then Griezmann also suffering a bit of decline. Deschamps was using a 4-2-3-1 system, but now he's gone to a 3 at the back. It's been interesting. It did lead to the Nations League win, as you said, Ali, in 2021, but it has looked a bit dodgy in this latest Nations League campaign. As Mark mentioned, Denmark beat them twice. There's no consistency in that back line, which is the problem. None of them have really played together much. It's going to likely be now a Lucas Hernandez, Varane, and maybe Jules Koundé back three. They've not really played together at all. So that's a big worry for France.
Varane's an injury out as well, isn't he?
Is he? Oh, right.
And Benzema.
Wow. Yeah, Benzema.
Benzema's out as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, to at least start the competition.
Yeah. That is the thing, though, with Benzema and Mbappe. If they do get together and eventually start together, they can win any match. You saw that
quality as well up front, haven't they? You know, even the bench, you know, Dembele and Coman and so on, and it's ridiculous. Even Giroud, you know, I mean, he's going to score a few goals if you're playing, but it's just Griezmann as well. There, you know, fallen a little bit, but still immense forward line.
This is the thing with Griezmann as well. I would have not been playing him personally. I think he has declined quite sharply at Atletico. I think Christopher Nkunku is probably the better shout to play as a number 10 behind that front two. But Deschamps very loyal to certain players. Rabiot is one of them, as Mark mentioned, and Griezmann is another one, definitely. So that might be somewhere they fall down eventually in the knockout rounds.
I'm torn between wanting to just nail my colours to the Didier Deschamps mast. I think he's so good and so underrated, and also understanding a lot of the concerns that we have about.
Can I give you
just
one quick stat on France?
Please.
In 11 of the last 13 tournaments, major tournaments, they've either reached the semi-finals or they've been eliminated in the group stage. It's very much feast or famine for France.
The emotional side, isn't it? It really is.
The last 3 World Cup winners have all gone out in the group stage as well.
So 4 Europeans have as well.
It's a strange old trend that. Very hard to win the World Cup, clearly even harder to defend it. No one's won it back-to-back for a long time. Group E has Germany and Spain in it, Japan and Costa Rica as well. BetUK have Spain the favourites to win the group at 9-10, with Germany 23-20. Then Japan at 11-1 to win the group, 3-1 to qualify from it. Costa Rica 70-1 to win the group, 15-1. Surely the biggest outsiders of all because of the strength of Spain and Germany.
Yeah.
Stephen, have you got a strong stance here?
To be honest, you can't. It's hard to see past Spain and Germany. The Japan do have quality; they really do. You know, they're very conservative side, but they've still got a little bit of quality. His name slipped my mind, but the lad at Brighton, the winger.
Yeah, Matoma.
Matoma, that's the one. Yeah, he looks really good, and obviously got Tomiyasu at Arsenal. He's a quality player. Took to life in the Premier League really well. But yeah, once again, Spain and Germany. I think Spain are still probably a little bit weak up front. You know, Morata, he kind of leads the line for them a little bit still, but he's not a killer in front of goal, and that could cost him later on in the tournament. But as ever with Spain, the quality down midfield, you know, Pedri is a superstar, you know, already, and you know, Gavi almost doesn't get the attention he deserves because of Pedri, and then obviously Busquets has been there and done it a billion times. Germany, Musiala could be the breakout guy of this tournament because he's that good and that special. But I think both of these sides, as good as they are, still probably not quite as started as they used to be. You know, we feel like they're both relatively in transition compared to 10 years ago when it was household name after household name, but they are still quality sides, and that seems to be a relative thing across Europe when you actually look at the sides in general. But yeah, for me, it's Spain, Germany, Costa Rica. A bit of experience. They've got the ex-Arsenal guy, Joe Campbell, there still, haven't they, I think? And remember him a long time ago, thinking he'd be world class at one point. Didn't turn out that way, but still a good player. Kylian Mbappe in goal is the kind of guy who could do a wonderful thing or two for them. But it's probably Spain and Germany. I would probably tip Spain for the group personally, and Japan might get a point or two here against one of those sides, but I can't really see them upsetting them.
So I personally want to be with Japan to qualify.
Go on.
I've got a very good feeling about the way that they might set up and how they could, in theory, hurt Germany and Spain if they can defend their own box strongly enough because of the talent that they have, particularly in those attacking midfield and wide options. The difficulty is they are up against, or they're probably in the about as tough a group as they could possibly be in, Mark. My question to you basically is, if I want to ride with Japan, 3-1 to qualify from the group, Who's most vulnerable out of the two favourites for you?
Oh, it's a tough question. It's a tough question because I agree with Stephen. I think both are probably a year or two away from, I wouldn't say peaking, but being sort of probably real challengers and contenders to go the distance.
Mm-hmm.
But I got such trust in the head coaches of both, Luis Enrique and Hansi Flick.
What does Flick's Germany look like compared to Jogi Löw, who was there for so long?
God, where do we start? Well, he's tried to basically take the Bayern Munich model to the national team, and it's definitely suiting the likes of Jamal Musiala, who we'll get to later in the show because I've got a price which is barely too big to be true, but probably tell what it is. Yeah, I mean, very gung-ho, very forward-thinking. Issues at full-back still persist. They're likely to play Kehrer at right-back, who is a centre-back by trade, and left-back you've got a wing-back in Rahm, who loves to get forward and probably not so good defensively. So they're issues, but I think midfield is a nice balance. You've got the three behind a central forward who would have been Timo Werner, but that's no longer possible because of injury. So I like Germany. I like Germany actually to score the most goals in this group at 21-20 because of that forward-thinking attitude. Spain, brilliant between both boxes, but then centre-half is a massive issue. If you're going to start Eric Garcia in a knockout game.
He's naff. As a Man City fan, genuinely, I lovely man by all accounts, but I don't see it at all by any stretch of the imagination. I really just don't get it. With Eric
Would you
Garcia.
prefer to have Otamendi or Eric Garcia?
Absolutely Otamendi, because Otamendi at least stands for something as a defender. That sounds really cruel, but I just don't rate Eric Garcia at all. I think he's passive. He's timid, he's not strong, he's not fast, and he's quite short. And he's a good passer, but that's just basically about it.
It's interesting, you can see that in the Champions League knockouts. Otamendi actually stood up for Benfica and qualified them for the knockouts, whereas Eric Garcia, his mistakes were costly for Barcelona against Inter Milan. I do think Spain are more vulnerable than Germany. I think one key aspect is their forwards aren't in as good form as Germany's. Sane, Gnabry, Musiala, they're all hitting their stride recently. And even Kai Havertz in the last international against England scored 2. So I think it will be that front four. And Spain, will probably line up Morata up front, Asensio maybe off the right, and Ferran Torres, possibly Ansu Fati. But Ansu Fati again hasn't hit his strides like he did pre-injury. Those two attacking lineups, I think Spain could be vulnerable against Japan, especially.
Spain start the tournament against Costa Rica, who are going to be one of the most defensive teams in the whole competition. Spain starting tournaments slowly is a tradition, right? Even when Spain have issues breaking down deep-line defences. Make a hiccup in that first game, who knows what might happen.
Nervy.
Piling the pressure on Spain here. It feels like we're leaning a little more German in Group E. What about Group F? Belgium, the favourites to win it at 13-20, but Croatia, the runners-up in 2018, are here as well. 9-4 to win it, 1-2 to qualify. Then the big gap. Morocco and Canada not so well fancied. Raj, Belgium finished third in 2018, Croatia finished second in 2018. We're 4.5 years on now, so maybe that's not hugely relevant. Who do you like in Group F?
Yeah, I'm not fancying those odds for Belgium to top the group, actually.
Really?
I think Croatia will top the group. Croatia remind me a bit like Real Madrid. They won't always dominate a game, but they've got so many technical footballers in there, they can play through you from back to front at any moment. That midfield of Kovacic, Modric and Brozovic, that's got so much quality there. And even up front, they've still got Ivan Perisic. Up front, there's a slight concern, but they've got a new wave of young talent as well. Gvardiol at the back is a good centre-back from Leipzig, can play left-back as well. Sutalo for Dinamo Zagreb caused Chelsea some problems in the Champions League at centre-back. So yeah, I quite like Croatia, and I think they'll beat Belgium. I've always had an issue with Roberto Martinez as a coach. I think defensively he's not the most sound at all. They leak goals for fun. I think Netherlands beat them 4-1 a few months ago, and they're slightly caught between two generations. Some of their older stars aren't in good form. Hazard, Lukaku, they've all been in poor form / injuries as well. Kevin De Bruyne obviously still phenomenal. But yeah, I don't fancy Belgium.
I remember at the start of this golden generation when it felt like Daniel Van Buiten played for about 20 years longer than he should have done, and now some of this lot are ageing. But Mark, they do score a lot of goals, Belgium. I wonder if that's a factor here. If we don't think if we think that Belgium-Croatia game may be the key, then it could also come down to goal difference and the goals that they rack up against the other teams. How do you see this?
I agree with Raj. I think Belgium are massively vulnerable in this group. I think it's much more even than the odds suggest. I can make a claim for all 4 teams. I can also oppose all 4 teams in different ways. Just on Belgium, so across the last 3 World Cups, these are the nations who have bombed out in the group stage at one point or another. Germany, England, Spain, Italy, Portugal and France. It can happen. And I look at this group and think it can definitely happen here. And there's no way I want to be with Belgium at 13 to 20 to win the group for all the reasons Raj has outlined. But that centre-half partnership still, Alderweireld and Van Tongen, I mean, what, they're 35 each? But the back 3 are all playing in Belgium, which kind of goes to show you the standard of where they're at right now. Martinez is kind of refusing now to sort of change things. He's very, very loyal to the old guard. The flip side is you got Courtois, probably the best goalkeeper in the world right now. Kevin De Bruyne, probably the best midfielder in the world right now. So, but I mean, I can make, you've already gone through Croatia. I'll go and leave them. Morocco are the team that really interest me in this group. Really interest me. They made a coaching change at the start of the year, and there's a completely different outlook now in Moroccan football. They're feeling confident. They're feeling optimistic. They feel like they've got an opportunity to qualify. You look at the team that might start. Bonu, the goalkeeper at Sevilla, rock solid. Centre half, Saiss, and the guy from West Ham, Aged. Yeah. They are brutally strong. Yeah. They've got the best fullbacks in the competition. Mazraoui on one side, Hakimi on the other.
It's not bad, is it?
Centre midfield is possibly a weakness. Yeah. But going forward, you're relying on El Nassiri. I know he's not consistent, but he's better than some of the options we've got in this competition.
Goals as well, can't he?
Exactly. And then you've got Ziyech back from international exile. Buffal as well, a lovely QPR boy, Elias Scher as well.
I was waiting for you to mention Big Elias.
So, I think Morocco are massive dangers for all these teams, and they're 2-1 to qualify. That really appeals to me. But you can't rule out Canada either. The issue of Canada is their sort of lack of testing against teams outside their own region. But look out for Alphonso Davies. Obviously, everyone knows all about him, but he plays much more offensively for Canada than he would do for Bayern Munich. And he's a few big prices in the anytime goal scorers if you look at their individual matches. He's on penalties as well.
Stephen, we might talk about KDB later on, but I'm interested to know from a City fan's point of view, rather. I saw something online the other day that suggested that there was still some question marks about KDB, very specifically in the biggest matches that he's played in his career over the last few years, in terms of City and not getting over the line in the Champions League. Is that in any way fair or ridiculous when it comes to KDB? It seems relevant here, at least.
5% fair, 95% ridiculous. Okay. There's not a single footballer in the history of the game that doesn't have the odd bad game. It just so happens that he's been in a City side that unfortunately bottled it around him often. He wasn't just like De Bruyne obviously went off injured in the Champions League final. Really good, decided to smash his face, which was unfortunate and left him numb literally for months. City didn't turn up that day entirely, but De Bruyne, to me, has consistently been the best player on the pitch against world-class sides for years now for Manchester City. And maybe not always in the European competition, though he has done that, but notably against, be it Liverpool, be it Chelsea, be it Spurs, United, or whatever, he's dominated these teams, and it's weird that City have got a team so good, and he looks often head and shoulders above the rest of his teammates. So I don't think there's any doubts about De Bruyne. As a City fan, this sounds weird. As an England fan, but if England don't win it, I kind of want Belgium to go far, just because I care so much about Kevin De Bruyne that the idea that people question how good he is, it triggers me. I'm not going to lie, it really does. Like, he should be appreciated for the quality that he's got an awful lot more, because I think we're witnessing an all-time great. I really believe that. But people talk a lot about legacy in football, and they hang team accomplishments over an individual. Bit too much in my personal opinion, but that's what's hung around his neck. So I guess that's what it takes to answer some questions. So be it. And I think he's had some good games for Belgium. I think he has. I think he's been brilliant at times. And often Belgium, like Man City in the big competition sometimes, have bottled it a little bit. But I don't think it's always been his fault. So I love KDB, basically. It's
a great thing about being a presenter these days. You can just say something you've read on Twitter, see what the answer is, and then distance yourself from it completely. I'm team KDB as well. Don't you worry about that. I'm really interested in Group G. Not so much because of Brazil, who are the very strong favourites to win it, 3-10 to win the group with Bet UK, 1-14 to qualify. It's mainly for me about Serbia and Switzerland, both of whom I consider on paper to look like they have quite good dark horse potential, quarterfinals, maybe to sneak a semi-final. So Mark, from a betting perspective, where's the interest in Group G?
Well, I'm not going to tell you Brazil will win the group, because they probably will. They've topped the group at the World Cup. Every World Cup they've been to since 1978. Wow. So let's assume they're going to win the group, because they are World Cup favourites. I think it does come down to the match day 3 game between Serbia and Switzerland, which I'm so excited for already. It's on the 2nd of December. I think it's got the makings of being one of the best games in the competition.
Goals and that, isn't it?
Goals. I'm going to say violence.
Perfect. What a game.
You might remember the meeting between the two 4 years ago, politically very charged, and there's a lot of bad blood between the two nations still stemming from that. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be nerve-wracking for the two teams, but I give Switzerland the edge. I think temperamentally they've got the edge, but I also think they're further down their sort of development phase, if you like. They're a very consistent outfit. You know where all the fits fit, or all the parts fit in that team. And I look at Serbia, I saw them quite a lot during the qualifying phase. They're a lot of fun. They'll get forward, they'll score goals, they'll be very, very offensively minded and put teams under pressure. And you look at the individuals in that team, they are absolutely stacked, but they're all in forward areas. And I guess the concern is Mitrovic and Vlahovic didn't play at the weekend, injured. Are they going to be fit enough for the start? We'll have to wait and see. Rumour is that they will be, and they were just saving themselves. That's a concern, and as is their defence, which is open. I mean, Ireland created numerous opportunities against the Serbian team, and that's the Irish team who've relying on sort of lower league forwards from the English divisions. So I think Switzerland can certainly score against them, and I think they're defensively sound enough to progress. It all comes down to that final game, so who can handle the atmosphere the better, and I would probably sort of edge towards Switzerland, but the prices are evens each of two, so you're not going to get a huge amount of value, but yeah, I mean, I'm Switzerland in this case.
What about you, Raj? Are Switzerland, Serbia leaning, or could Cameroon sneak in? I know that people who looked back at the AFCON felt that up until the point of losing on penalties to Egypt, who went on to lose in penalties in the final, Cameroon had actually arguably looked the strongest of all teams up to that point, with Rigobert Song as their manager. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, Cameroon, they've got an interesting team actually. They've got obviously Zambo Anguissa in midfield. He's been fantastic for Napoli this season. And then up front, they've got a bit of firepower as well. Choupo-Moting's been in good form for Bayern. Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. Abubakar always has a good record for Cameroon. And Toko Ekambi as well. So they could cause a shock or two in this group as well. They've got the goal threat to do it. I think I'll probably back Serbia just about in second. But as Mark said, it's going to be very tight. Switzerland are capable of absorbing a lot of pressure and then just hitting you on the counter. Breel Embolo, rapid, at number 9 for them. Interesting thing for them is they still use Granit Xhaka as a kind of a deep lying midfielder, as a defensive midfielder. And as we've seen for Arsenal, he's thriving much further forwards these days. So it's interesting they still haven't adapted his role in the national team. But yeah, I think it will be between those two. Cameroon maybe sneaking a couple of draws possibly. But yeah, I think I'll just back Serbia with that firepower, Milinkovic, Savic, Tadic, and then up front, Mark already mentioned the two strikers, and then Kostic.
Well.
Yeah, Kostic has probably been Juve's one of their best players this season. He's got pace, and his delivery is probably the most consistent out there from wing-back or full-back at the moment.
He's only got the best aerial threat potentially in world football to aim for in the middle in Mitrovic, who's in ridiculous shape at the moment. It's taken another leap over the last few years, haven't we, from the player that we would have seen a couple of years ago for Newcastle in the Premier League and dare I say it, previous Serbia iterations. Mitro's in pretty absurd form at the moment. Group H is the last of the groups. Stephen, Portugal are the favourites, 3-5 with Bet UK to win the group, and then Uruguay at 21-10, Ghana at 13-1, South Korea 12-1, and both of those two 27-10 to qualify. An interesting one, the favourites Portugal. I'm interested to hear your opinions on them. They've got a bit of a City flavour with João Cancelo, part of their pretty impressive fullback options, him and Bruno Mendes. Of course, Bernardo Silva is a key part of this team as well, and offers is part of another varied threat going forward with Rafael Leao providing the speed. Cristiano Ronaldo, the elephant in the room. What do we think? Are they solid here, or are they vulnerable?
Big shiny elephant in the room. They've got a quality team, haven't they? I think they're a team very much poised if they can find a way to gel all these players together. Because you look throughout the team and realise it's just stacked with quality. It really is. Obviously, the City lads have said Ruben Dias, João Cancelo, Bernardo Silva, proven winners at the highest level. And then, obviously Ronaldo. It's just, did they build it around him, or did they just put him on the bench for a laugh and put João Felix there with Bruno behind him? And João Felix is not in great form either, though, is he, at the moment? So that's another kind of thing for them. Portugal, you never know what kind of Portugal's going to turn up, really. I do think they'll probably go through this group quite comfortably, though, in the end, because I think they do have the quality, but it just depends if they do anything for Ronaldo, because he's not scoring goals at the moment, is he? For anyone, really. I think I saw a stat about him having the most shots in the knockout stages without scoring in the World Cup currently at the moment. It's like 25 shots or something like that, which is quite ridiculous. But he does have that kind of big game mentality, I guess. So we'll see how it goes. But Portugal, yeah, I'm expecting him to do pretty well, personally.
Mark?
Portugal are probably the team I don't know. Big question mark. Ronaldo's going to start, which is a negative, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Disrupts the balance completely. It's probably going to be Bernardo or Bruno, not both. Which again, and you got Santos, who I know he's delivered European glory, but I think football's progressed in the last 8 years enough to be, historically you say you need to be conservative, pragmatic in tournament football to be successful. I don't think that is the case these days. Football's moved on. You look at the Champions League knockout stages, ding-dong battles. Look at the way France won the World Cup 4 years ago. They weren't doing that. They were scoring heaps of goals in the knockout stages. And I look at the Portugal squad. I'm not going to say they're top-heavy because they've got quality elsewhere, but you've got Santos, who is arch-pragmatist, conservative, but all that options going forward. And Jota's missing as well, which is a big blow. It disrupts the rhythm up there as well. So I think they're vulnerable as 3 to 5 shots to win the group. I think Uruguay there at 21-10 would be where I'd be heading. Going through their own sort of generational shift, if you like, and there's a few veterans there who probably need to be moved on. Diego Godin will probably start, and his pace, he's been declining for a long time. And if Ronaldo Araujo is not fit from Barcelona, that is a blow. The midfield is wonderful. They've got real quality, real bite, as we know. They're probably still sort of hanging on to Luis Suarez, but can he play 3 games in a week is doubtful. So you're hoping that Darwin kind of gets into that sort of centre forward spot and they build a team around him. So yeah, I like Uruguay. I've got doubts over Portugal at 3 to 5. I think they're short enough to oppose.
I'm wondering about South Korea. They're clearly not as well fancied as Uruguay, who seem a very popular kind of dark horse pick, shall we say, betting wise. Raj, where do you stand with Uruguay, with this sort of mixture of generations? They don't have Oscar Tabarez, who is their manager for ages. It's Diego Alonso now. They've still got Suarez, Cavani, Cáceres, Muslera, and Diego Godin as well, all 34 or older. But quite an exciting young crop: Bentancur, Araujo, Valverde, Nunez as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the coaching changes. That has actually had a real positive impact on Uruguay. They were actually not looking at qualifying for the World Cup. And Alonso comes in, changes the system, 4-4-2 now, very organised, and they've got flair all over the park now. Oh, you mentioned Bentancur, he's in very good form for Spurs. Valverde, probably been Real Madrid's best player this season, playing on the right wing, and I expect him to play on the right wing of the 4-4-2 again and chip in with plenty of goals and assists. And then I like that strike partnership of Nunez and Suarez. Suarez, at this stage of his career, needs someone who can run the channels for him, do the athletic side of the game really for him, whilst he can just drop into little pockets and cause a bit of havoc. Nunez can do that. That is his perfect role, to be honest, and he'll stretch defences while Suarez drops off. And I like that strike partnership, and I think they will top the group ahead of Portugal. I mentioned Carlos Queiroz earlier. Santos is part of that same kind of Portuguese stable of coaches, but that's more suitable for someone like Iran. When you've got so many technical footballers that Portugal have, they should have employed a bit more of a forward-thinking coach by now, and I'm not sure why they haven't, and it could cost them in this tournament, I think.
I'm pretty interested in South Korea, I have to admit. From what I understand, they are a pretty progressive side, a good technical ball-playing football team, and I think that they'll probably enjoy a fair amount of possession in some of these games. Of course, it's centred around Son getting good shooting opportunities. He's so good with both feet that if he is fit, and if that sore face or eye socket or cheekbone, whatever it was, is allowing him to play properly, then I don't see why he couldn't be a star in the sort of tempo of international football. So I'd like to be with South Korea personally. I know that Uruguay are very popular, and it feels like we think Portugal may be a little vulnerable. So that's the 8 groups sorted. 2 weeks of group action upcoming, and I think within all 8 of those, we've got some really interesting different dynamics in terms of bulletproof favourites, vulnerable favourites, some interesting outsiders as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how they all play out. Some big match day 3 games as well on the horizon. Switzerland against Serbia is the one, isn't it? I think to keep an eye on. Now let's talk outright winner. The winner of World Cup 2022 in Qatar. I'll talk you through what I consider to be the sort of 9 front runners, if you can have 9 front runners. Brazil at 4-1 the favourites, Argentina 11-2 second favourites. Then a bit of a jump to France at 7-1, Spain at 9-1, England at 9-1. Bet UK have Germany 12-1, Netherlands 13-1, and Portugal 16-1, with Belgium out at 18-1. Then there's a little gap to your Denmarks, your Croatias, your Uruguays between 33s and 50s, and then all of the rest 70-1 or longer. Mark, I love talking to you before a new season, a new tournament, because I know the research that you put in, and I love hearing about any trends that you've uncovered. With the World Cup in particular, how have favourites fared heading into the last few tournaments?
Not so great, because Brazil have been the favourites for the last four competitions since they last won the competition. France, as a favourite, bombed out in 2002 in the group stage, but apart from that, it's pretty much been Brazil topping the market, and as we all know, they haven't won it since when is it?
2002.
2002, yeah, correct. But this feels like the best opportunity for them to do so since then. They're really sort of, it's Chiche's last opportunity really to have proper success with this Brazilian team. He's been in charge for well over a 4-year cycle. I think squad-wise, you look at them, they're stacked in almost all areas. And I think it's not just the squad, it's actually the team, the system. They all know what's required, and the balance of the team just looks right. So probably 12 months ago, I had my doubts of them being market favourites, but right now I look at them at 4-1. I think that's absolutely fair enough. The draw's not been massively kind. It's a difficult group, and then their route to the final on paper is tricky, but I think they deserve to be 4-1 favourites. And you can pick holes in almost every team in this competition. You can pick the fewest holes in the Brazilian squad, and I know football doesn't always lend itself to the favourites. Winning, it's a low-scoring sport. Variance happens. Low-scoring games equal underdog opportunities. But I think hands down, Brazil are the best team in this competition, and that's probably I can't disagree with 4-1. Put it that way. I can back them at that price happily, and sort of believe they've got a good opportunity to lift the trophy.
Would you be agreeing with that and getting with Brazil, or will you be looking elsewhere for your outright winner?
I think Brazil definitely in the I've got them in the top 2 favourites. I do fancy Argentina slightly to edge them out, like they did in the Copa America. I think this Argentina has a great balance between pragmatism and flair. There's a lot of strong defensive players who have a lot of intensity and high work rate and aggression. I think that could push them over the line ahead of Brazil, who have got a bit more attacking flair in those front 4 slots. But yeah, Argentina, I think defensively have that attitude, which lends itself very well to tournament football. And I think Messi as well, the form he's in, I think this is actually the closest we've seen to peak Messi for a while, even in his last season at Barcelona. So I think he could push him over the line, and Lautaro as well is in good form.
They've also won, obviously, the Copa America recently, so that's a massive, massive weight off their shoulders.
Which American are as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, which is definitely, I think this been hanging over them for an awful long time, and Messi in particular. He was expected to do something, finally did it. You can see how much it meant to him when he did. So I think Argentina, they're incredibly well placed, I reckon. Once again, obviously, recently they've got past Brazil to win Copa America. So I think they've got a very good shout. Personally, they are my favourites going into it. Brazil obviously could be, but Argentina to me, they would be my sweepstake, put it that way.
At chunkier prices, which of the following do we want to sort of hitch our wagon to? France at 7-1, Spain at 9-1, England at 9-1, Germany 12-1, Netherlands 13s, and Portugal 16, Belgium 18-1. Instinctively, Mark stands out to me because of how good I perceive them to be going forward. And yet, I'm worried I might be missing something here.
Which one?
Belgium at 18-1, the longest of the 9. I'm interested in.
Well, Belgium are probably the main ones of that 9 I want to be against in this competition. So
there you go.
They're the ones.
Amazing how quickly my opinion has changed straight away.
They're the ones I can see out of all of those teams having an early exit. Okay. So, to be honest, I wouldn't back any of them at those prices. I'd be looking beyond that. And obviously, it's massively reliant on the draw. But Denmark, we've talked about, if they win that group, they avoid Argentina in the last 16, and then the price contracts significantly. Uruguay, we talked about, is potentially topping that group. If they do so, they avoid Brazil. Their odds will contract massively as well when they get into the knockout stage. And they're the two kind of teams who we know set up, in terms of how they will set up, they'll be very difficult to beat, very physical. And I always like a team like that who are, if you're an opponent going into a game against Uruguay, you're not exactly relishing it, are you? You know this is going to be a battle. We know this is going to be a dogfight, and you could probably say the same about Denmark too. And I think that's always an asset to have on your team if you on your side if you're looking at a bigger price. So I agree with the lads. I think if it's not Brazil, it's probably going to be Argentina. I'd happily avoid all the European nations right now, apart from Denmark and Uruguay.
Stephen, it's very rare that a dark horse or a long shot wins the tournament, but that doesn't mean that you can't still go deep within it.
England have got a chance. You know?
In terms of semi-finalists, you know, Croatia in 2018, got Turkey back in the day. Did we have Uruguay reaching the semi-final as well? I think in 2010, was it? So of the long shots, of the outsiders, who do you think has the best chance of going the deepest, shall we say?
You look at the odds and you're like, Wales have proven they can do crazy things in the competition. Once again, that's entirely emotional, but that's the kind of side that they are. And then, you know, Serbia, they have goals in them, and goals matter in knockout competitions. Would anyone be surprised if, you know, someone puts a cross on Mitrovic's head and, you know, they go through to the quarters? Yeah, suddenly that wouldn't be unheard of. Well, it would actually, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it could actually happen. And there are potential upsets once again with the weather being a bit of a leveler and the time of the year. You know, it's going to be Christmas time, and it's a strange tournament by default anyway, given when it's happening, given the heat and so on. So there's a lot of the quality will be levelled out by fitness and preparation and so on. So yeah, a couple of teams like that for me. Serbia, maybe Wales. Who knows what USA are going to do? They're not going to do anything incredible, but you never know. They could get to the knockout stages and surprise a few people.
Raj, tactical expertise coming out your ears. What does that point to out of the long shots, the outsiders?
I fancy the Croats. As I mentioned earlier, they do remind me a bit like Real Madrid, where they just need one phase of play where they get it all together and they'll cut through you at will, really. So yeah, those odds look pretty appealing to me. And also the Dutch I mentioned, as I said, they don't have those stars, but they play to the strengths of their most talented players. And that back three I really like, and they can give you a platform in any game, even against major teams. So those two are probably the ones outside the favourites.
13-1 for the Netherlands. I'd be pretty happy for Louis van Gaal to win a World Cup. I think that would be a fun way for him to bow out of management.
Forget the content, you know.
The content would be unbelievable. Mark doesn't like him because he once called QPR Queen's Park Raisins.
That's a reason to love him, surely.
Yeah. You've always been very offended since then. Let's talk Golden Boot. Top scorer, of course, Harry Kane, 2018 Golden Boot winner thanks to that group game against Panama. He is the favourite in the market with Bet UK as well, 8-1 to win the Golden Boot. Benzema, the Ballon d'Or winner, is 9-1 to win the Golden Boot, and Mbappe 9-1. Messi at 10s, Neymar 13-1. Then we got Ronaldo 15-1, Memphis Depay 22-1, same as Lautaro Martinez, Lukaku at 24-1. Then we're getting to Rafinha and Gabriel Jesus and Vinicius Jr. They're all at 30-1 with Bet UK. I think this is an interesting market. I think that there must be some value at chunkier prices, Mark, in terms of trends in this market. What happens in the Golden Boot market in World Cups? Does the favourite win it?
Not always, no. Only two favourites have won or even placed in the top goal scorer market since 1994, which is obviously a back mark against Harry Kane, who I think was a 16-1 shot 4 years ago, doing the business. The average price of the top goal scorer since 1994 is 56-1, and of the last 11, 4 of them have been priced up at 100-1 or larger.
Wow.
James Rodriguez was 150-1 back in Brazil. Wow. 14 of the last 17 top goal scorers or shared top goal scorer winners reached at least the semi-finals, and 13 scored at least 2 goals in the group stage. Obviously, it helps to sort of get your figures up in the group stage against the minnows of the group, shall we say.
What's Musiala at? Does anyone know? Because that's the kind of person I can imagine just scoring, a
couple of races. Thunder, Stephen.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Passing it over to you.
We haven't got a price for Musiala. Some of the longer odds: Lewandowski at 40-1, Sane 40s, Sterling 40s, Gnabry 45-1, Griezmann 45-1, Mitro and Nunez and Ferran Torres are at 50-1. Raj, any goal scorers you want to be getting with ahead of the World Cup?
I think Lautaro Martinez is the one that stands out to me. That group looks pretty weak for Argentina to beat a few teams handsomely. Mexico, Saudi Arabia. I can see Lautaro notching up a hat-trick or 2 in there. And then outside of that, Darwin Nunez at 50. I think that's actually... Was it 50, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a decent price. If we expect Uruguay to cause a few shocks. And he's in good form, scored 2 against Southampton at the weekend. So yeah, that could be a decent bet.
Mark, you just talked about all of the different trends, the stats. When you put them all into your model, apply it to this 2022 World Cup market, what gets spat out as value?
Lautaro Martinez, massive fan of that price. Consider Messi's 10 to 1. Lautaro has been in fantastic goal scoring form for Argentina under Scaloni. Really sort of found his place there. He'll have ball laid on the plate really from Messi and Di Maria. You know, it's a match made in heaven really. But it's a bigger price, which on oddschecker you'll probably get at least 120 to 1. Probably a lot bigger would be Jamal Musiala playing at the tip of that German attack. He's being written off. You look at the price of Sane, Muller, Gnabry, Havertz. He's a million miles away from price-wise, and I think he's got 11 in 13 for Bayern in the Bundesliga. His record in the Champions League is exceptional. He is the real business, and I think this Germany team will score goals, and he'll be one of the better players at this World Cup for sure. Exciting,
a good name to have flagged up there. What about the Golden Ball? This is player of the tournament rather than top goal scorer. How often is it the same player that wins the Golden Boot? Who wins this award, Mark?
Not often, actually. Veterans tend to thrive in this. 4 of the last 5 have been aged 30 or over.
Narratives.
Yes.
Narrative-based award, this.
And narrative is exactly why I think people are best advised to split their stakes between Lionel Messi and Neymar.
Right, the two favourites, Messi and Neymar, both 9 to 1. Just to give some of the other well-fancied names: Mbappe 11 to 1, Benzema 13 to 1, De Bruyne 15 to 1, Kane 17 to 1, Vinicius at 20 to 1. So it is clearly, priced up. The best players for the most well-fancied teams are being priced up here.
Yeah.
And you want the joint favs.
Well, they're the obvious picks, aren't they? They're probably playing in their last World Cup. For Messi, definitely is. And if they were to win the World Cup or go close, let's say we have a surprise winner outside of the top 2 in the market, they're still going to be there or thereabouts. Modric won it without having to win the competition outright, and I think as long as they have a decent tournament, they're going to be in this in the reckoning for sure. If you split your stakes, you're basically thinking about 4.5 to 1 for either to win, which I think is obviously you look at the price of the 2 teams to win outright. If Brazil are to win, Neymar's going to be very much up there as one of the contenders. If Argentina win, I think it's close to. I'm going to say it's a guarantee, but it's going to be very, very hard to dissuade people from Messi for sure. So. If you were to sort of back both Brazil and Argentina to win the competition, you get about 15 to 8. You actually back both Neymar and Messi to win the golden ball, not the boot. You're getting about 4.5 to 1, so double the price.
Quite difficult to argue with the logic there, Raj. Any other names you want to flag up?
Yeah, I think Memphis Depay could be a decent shout if the Dutch could get a bit further in the competition. I think he, as I mentioned, he's a creator and a goal scorer, and that always lends itself well to being up for a golden ball. So yeah, he could be one. And as we mentioned, Messi, as Mark mentioned, I think he's on fire. So that would be where I'd be heading, and obviously split it to get that 4 to 1 price.
Okay. Quite strong Netherlands vibes from you, Raj, here.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like how that's just oozed out of you over the course of the hour
narrative, by the way. Denmark do well. Eriksen at 17 to 1. That's a narrative for you right there, isn't it? It really is, and that could tempt a few people.
That's interesting. Do you think there's a chance, Mark, if Denmark got to the semis and lost, let's say, which, given how much we like them as a dark horse option, isn't out of the question? Do you think there's a chance that Eriksen could win the Golden Ball with his team hypothetically losing at the semi-final stage in lieu of a Messi or a Neymar if their team wins it?
Yeah, it's happened before. If you look at the numbers, it's predominantly for teams who reach the final, but it's happened before that semi-finalists have actually provided the winner. So it's not without question for sure. But my question is, do Denmark get that far? I think they can play above their odds, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Christian Eriksen 70 to 1 to win this Golden Ball with Bet UK. Luka Modric, the last winner, at 50 to 1 as well. And sadly, that's it for our World Cup preview, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet UK. Don't forget to check out their best ever sign-up offer, which is available right now. And it's bet £19, get £66 in free bets. The spirit of 1966 is what Bet UK are going for their World Cup offer. Also check out the oddschecker site, where our World Cup previews and our content and all of the markets are all up. The site is laden with World Cup markets, including best all the best boosts around from all of the bookmakers, our very own Acca Scout as well, if you're looking for more insight. And just make sure that you are liking this video, subscribing to the podcast, to the YouTube channel as well. And thank you for sitting through this with us. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to Raj, to talk to Mark, Stephen as well. The World Cup's just days away. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Thanks for watching.